Hello everyone, how are we doing today?
We are good,
Yes,
bro.
we have finally kicked off this session. Would like to apologize for any form of delay in the transmission, but I mean we welcome everyone here to this session. Today we are looking at some interesting topic. I mean, I think this is a topic that I feel almost every DevOps engineer or one who plans to start a career in cloud should be familiar with, right? And I mean, this is the beginning of something interesting coming up. So we are looking forward to sharing our knowledge as much as possible. Um, we have interesting persons here. I mean, I would call them top class DevOps engineers, senior engineers who have, been in this field for quite a while. They have also been, sharing their knowledge from for years back. But today they are going to be anchoring this special event for today. Um, for today's topic, we'll be basically focusing on bicep deployment. We would also want to look further into how do you deploy biceps making use of Azure DevOps. In the first introduction session for this, um, for today, we would look majorly into biceps and try to see how we can break this down as much as possible. So I'd like to welcome the speakers for today. Um, I will start with Chidebere Ugu. Chidebere Ugu has been someone I've known for quite a while now, maybe let me say for 5, 6 years, right? And I mean, he is an awesome and senior DevOps engineer who has, been teaching topics like this for quite a while, right? And I also have another senior DevOps engineer in the house. His name is Ihiana Chochuku. This is someone I would say I've known for years. Brilliant chap. He understands these topics from beginning to the end. And of course, today we would have the opportunity to listen to him, right? So, in order not to waste so much time, let's commence this. Um, just a brief intro into basically um, the topic today. I mean, I feel like you can't be talking about bicep if you haven't spoken about infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is like the whole concept behind all of this, right? We basically use various tools, right, under which we will say they are basically infrastructure as code, but in all of these tools they achieve the same thing. Only difference is that this particular tool we are looking at today is something very common and familiar with the Azure environment. So, yeah, let me open the floor to Chidebere Ugu, who will be taking us on the first section of bicep deployment. Hello, Chidebere. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Promise, for the introduction. So you've
Awesome.
done awesome. Today, as you have already said, we're talking about infrastructure as a code. Basically, we have different tools for infrastructure as a code, ranging from Terraform, Ansible, ARM template, and Bicep. But for the purpose of this demo and presentation, we'll focus mainly on Microsoft Biceps, and then explain the bicep parameters, explain how you can use bicep to deploy your infrastructures, and then we can proceed to explaining how you can structure your code and then be able to deploy your infrastructures. So uh, basically, bicep is a domain specific language for deploying Azure resources decoratively. So it's a more of an advanced version of ARM template, that's Azure Resource Manager template. So it simplifies the Azure Resource Manager template. So Biceps enables you to organize your deployments into modules. Or let's say, for instance, instead of deploying your infrastructures via ClickUps, just a user interface on Microsoft Azure, or physical infrastructure deployment on your local environment, then you can codify it using this domain-specific language to codify your infrastructure deployment. And then modularizing it in a way that instead of setting up a single file to deploy multiple infrastructures, which might be complex, unreadable, and difficult to maintain. So you can use modules to specify different infrastructures. For instance, if you're deploying resource group, virtual machine, VNet, storage accounts, and databases. So you can put all these infrastructures into separate modules. And then in your main bicep file, you call these modules, and this will help in management or maintenance of the code structure. Then uh, we'll proceed to the benefits of infrastructure as a code, but streamlining it to biceps, as I've mentioned earlier. So for infrastructure as a code, one of the benefits for infrastructure as a code is consistency. Consistency in the sense that it ensures the same configuration is deployed every time. So I'll give an instance. If you are deploying a visual machine, for an instance, you might decide to select a kind of image, a VM image that you want and certain other configurations. Then when you want to replicate such an infrastructure, it becomes a bit tedious to be able to replicate an exact image without cloning it also. So using infrastructure as a code makes ensures the same configuration is being redeployed each time you want to replicate. And then also it helps your scalability and speed. So in terms of scalability, so within your configuration, you can set up your scalability status for the infrastructure to scale to a certain level when there is higher CPU utilization or some other parameters that you might put in place, and then for the infrastructure to scale down when the utilization of the CPU or the traffic going to that particular infrastructure also slows down. And also it ensures rapid provisioning of the infrastructure, which is the speed aspect of it. Then with infrastructure as a code, you can also maintain versioning. That is the version control. So it can help you version different deployments that you are making in a particular environment, so that you'll be able to track changes that are being done in your environment and the deployments also made. Then the fourth or fifth benefit here also is automation. So with infrastructure as a code, it helps you to automate deployment in the sense that within your pipeline file, you can set up triggers that when a code is pushed from so and so branch of your Git repo or Azure repo, depending on the repository that you are using, it can trigger the pipeline to deploy that infrastructure, which helps to remove human interfacing and then automate the deployment of those infrastructures without an engineer having to look into that or having to interfere with those deployments. So also with the deployment architecture, we have different stages of the deployment architecture, which I would just like to briefly mention before handing over to my senior colleague Nacho to give a detailed explanation of the code structure, how you can modify your codes, and how you go around deploying any kind of infrastructure you want to deploy on the cloud. So on the architecture, we will have basically a developer or a DevOps engineer on the other end writing the code on either any of the IDEs, integrated development environment, or your Visual Studio Code. So once that is done, writing your script, then the next is to push it to Azure repo. So or either GitHub, or depending on the one, or Circle CI, depending on the one you choose. Then from there, you have your triggers on the pipeline, Azure pipeline, and then those triggers will now automate the deployment of those infrastructures to your resource group. So coming to the resource group, so we'll now give you a general overview of the target deployment place where you have a kind of a scope. With Bicep, you scope your deployment to subscriptions. So because those resources are just like a container that will house the infrastructure that you are deploying, and then it will be based on a subscription you have on that cloud environment. So you will have also your Bicep template files, which you have also already written on infrastructure as a code. My colleague Nacho will continue more on those your Bicep files, parameter files, and modular templates that you have on your Visual Studio, which you will push and then deploy via the pipeline. So from here, I'm welcoming Nacho to take over from the code structures, how you can get your codes from documentation, official documentation from Microsoft, how you can make your modifications, and how you can go about deploying them, and also a brief explanation of the code blocks for better understanding.
Awesome. Also, before Nacho kicks in, please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them on the chat, and we'll try to provide answers as much as we can. Over to you, Nacho.
Thank you very much, Promise and Chidi. And thanks for everyone joining this session. Well, I would like to just continue here to basically talk more about how we can implement Biceps. So following best practices, I would like to emphasize the need to have a clean code and a well-structured code, like my colleagues have mentioned. So what we intend to do here is to have like a module that is going to be the Bicep templates for different resource we'll be deploying. We have this put into modules. So this will be in this folder, and we'll have something like different modules, say resource group, for instance, the Bicep file, which will be like a module, okay, and probably we'll have a main Bicep file, which will be calling the modules. Of course, we want to also have our parameter file. So this is the kind of structure we intend to implement for cleaner codes. So without wasting much time, I'd just like us to move to how we can get this from scratch. So say I want to deploy a Bicep resource for resource group. I'll just search the internet and get the code structure, right? So this is what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna pick this and try to make it standard, make it cleaner, right? So this will be our resource group Biceps module. And we have the target scope, which mainly says these deployments will be targeted at Azure subscription. And of course, we have the parameters, which will be passing in for this resource block. So this is the parameter, this is the resource block for resource group. So making it cleaner here, I would like to, just do some restructuring, making it better, renaming and all of that. So I'll have something like this here, resource group resource, all right, just to emphasize the name. And here we'll be passing a resource group name, okay, and the resource group location. These are being passed in as strings. I would like to use objects instead of string, and I'll just need to this will help my parameter file to be cleaner, right? So I'll be passing resource group, then I'll have the resource group name referenced here, okay? Then I also have resource group location. So this way we have much cleaner code. I'm just going to take this off. Sorry, I meant to take just this. So also I would like to add a little bit of best practices in terms of having the tags. Once I have defined tags, I also have to have like a parameter for tags. That will be an object as well. Then I'll just define, in case it's not given, it shouldn't throw any error. So that's an empty object. So with this, we would now have defined the resource group module. Then I'll have to, call that module from the main bicep file. Okay. How do we call the module? We can still go online and check as well. Just for the first one at least. So we have an example here where a module is being called. So basically you see it's points the module resource, gives it a name that you like to call it, and you direct this to the part of the module you're calling. Okay, if I just copy this over, all right, and have here, then of course I will have something a little bit plain here. Resource group. I can call this UKS because I know just a location of the resource group, nothing more. Then here we'll be calling the module, okay, and that will be modules is in modules folder, right? Then we pick the file. Then here we define what the resource should be. So I'll call this, there's a little bit of cleanup here. I don't need this. What I need here will be the resource group and the tags. So that will be coming here, resource group and tags that we're expecting. So this resource group, if we check again, you'll see it's defining the name and location, then the tag. So this will give you all this value. Okay, then the tag will also have a different value. So here we'll have to pass in that value. Okay, so what we want to do is we'll carefully define this to meet a clean code, then we have something that is more appropriate. So here, I'll just call this resource group. For this resource group, this is scope to subscription, which is fine. Just leave that empty. Should pick. If I define my target group here as well as subscription, this is my scope. It's already defined. This is the object. Let's give it a sensible name. Say parameter file. Is say tags parameter. So it's differentiated. So we repeat the same thing here. So let's go through that again. So we call the module which calls this module here, right? And here it's expecting two parameter file, the resource group and the tags, which I have provided here, resource group and the tag. Now to have a clean code, okay, I'm going to be passing the same parameter as another parameter, which this time I've called tags param and resource group UKS param, right? Which is why we just defined this here again. Is that clear? So
yeah.
To make this a little bit clean, I just like to maybe introduce, say, a variable file. Probably I'll call that deployment name. Deployment name. Yeah, just let's call it Azure event. Okay, so we will reference that variable here. Yeah, this much cleaner, right? So having done this, we should be able to deploy this and see how it goes, not before defining the parameter file, which will be basically the value that is expected from these objects, right? So in Bicep, we'll have to define the main file using functions. So this will pick the main.bicep file, which is the desirable file to use, right? Then we can now name our parameter file. So what we're going to be expecting name. What should we call it? Demo Azure events.
Then your location.
Location, yeah. The UK South.
Okay, sorry to cut you short. Are you setting environmental variables on this? We'll just deploy straight up after your parameters.
So we already set the environment variables right here, right? And we have
Okay.
used it here. So we're just passing the parameters now. Is that
Okay.
fine?
Okay, yeah.
The one beautiful thing about Biceps is we have an extension that could show you when things go wrong. Like now, if you highlight this, you see it's basically saying that this wasn't properly defined. So that extension, I actually had installed that Bicep extension that helps you to link your deployment. So this is missing an equals to here. Okay. Then this one as well is telling you that it cannot find this main.bicep file. So what could be wrong? We'll look at
The
this
file part,
really.
Slash.
The
Yeah.
file part, yeah.
A dot
Slash.
slash or something, yeah.
So that's our file.
One backwards again. I'll just leave it as a root model.
Yeah, it should because I saw something. I saw it was calling the modules directory just now.
Yeah, that's because it should be fine this way, really.
It should.
I don't know why it's flagging it.
Yeah, let's see what's the word? Let's see hover your mouse around the
Error. So the parts must reference using relative file.
Yeah, so I think put a dot.
Oh, a dot, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Still there. Let's see, what have I missed? Oh, does it? Okay. Expect a character. This is what I missed.
Equal to, right?
Yeah, equals to. Oh shit. How did I miss that? I thought I copied and pasted from the
It happens from Microsoft documentation. Yeah. Thank you to validate.
Hey, so we have it. So we can now create this and see what happens with create command. So at that, it's creating, try and go to the portal and see what we have.
No?
Still creating. So guys, we must come back and look at what links has identified. most times to always tell you, like what we had then was, it says the code, how I got to know. It says the biceps code has some issues, and I went back to the bicep to look at this, right? As I identified that error. But that's surprising to me because I did a copy and paste, so I don't know how we missed that. Just here. Give it some time. Yeah, it's fully deployed now. What did we call this?
Azure
I think that should be Azure Event Resource Group.
Demo
Azure Resource Group.
Yeah.
So we have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we proceed to our next results. Say we could try to create, say, a virtual network and probably some few components as time may allow us. So let's go to a virtual network. It's more of like, you know, how to really do this thing without thinking much about it. Like just go to the documentation and try to find what you can get online and build from there, basically. So I'm looking for a virtual network here. This would do for me, right? I just pick this and work on it. So go to the module. Any question on the last one we did?
Yeah, I don't see any questions yet. I mean, if there are any, I'll point you to them.
Okay, so this, just keep it clean. Virtual network name. I'll probably introduce a simpler object. I just call this name. We'll always have the location and tags. So let's just copy this over. Now location and tags. No. This would be a string. So we add tag here. We pass this in, right? This will be part of the object here, right?
Yeah.
Should we take this out? Let's take this out and
the address prefix.
Yeah, let's take this out and pass as well. So it allows us to manipulate and change it as we may want. Similarly, yeah, let's do the same thing here. I'll call this subnet address space.
Then you have to specify that.
So this looks fine. Are we missing anything? It's fine. So probably want to add NSG, say for a virtual machine or something.
Yeah, you can leave it simple so
Okay.
that if there is time, then
All
we
right.
can touch the pipeline or have a second part 2 where we'll do the pipeline after this.
Okay, that's fine. I don't think we can go all the way, but just focus on the template and make sure we understand it very well. Yeah. So we'll have to call that same module, right? We'll be using the module resource. We call the virtual network. Call the module.
After this, I would like you to shed more light on why use modules.
Okay, that's fine. So a little explanation here. The scoping of this would be to a resource group, because when you create a virtual network, you need to create it to a resource group. Basically, that's the way we'll be expecting it to be. So say resource group would be the scope. Yeah, this will be the scope. It says scope it to parameter, that's name. Yeah, of course, it has to, it needs to pass other items, which is the parameter. So we'll pass parameter. We'll need the location. We need tags, right? Then we'll need the VNet.
VNet
Address space.
address space and the
Yeah.
subnet address.
So remember, we're going to be passing that again to keep it clean as a parameter, just like we've done before. So the location should be the same thing as location of our parameter file, right? This resource location should be the same thing, and that will be, yeah, parameter file, if I'm not mistaken, that's location, right? Then the tags should as well be tags param. Then the VNet will have to define as a parameter, right? VNet param, just like we've done. Then we need to provide that value up here, like inside the parameter file, basically. So we're going to be passing that same value as an object that will have all of those parameters that we need defined here, right? So I'll just close this real quick. We'll come here, we define the parameter now, which will be, yeah, it tries to help you pick next things. So what do we have there?
Yeah, the
Gonna have
VNet
to open this way. So yeah, we'll pass this address namespace. Next one, subnet name. Next one will be this
address prefix.
So I'll just go yeah, there's a name as well. Missed that. Let's put that in up. What name do you want to call this? Demo
virtual network. Oh yeah, demo, yeah.
Something like that. So just go copy whatever is here. Anyway.
Address space A. This is a different topic entirely. Subnet name.
Still as default. With that, we should have to be able to validate and deploy. So that's validated that the code is fairly good. At times you could validate and still fail. But yeah, so it's always good to have validate and probably what if command that really use the Azure resource deployment, you know. Yeah, but this is, I mean, this is just a simple stuff startup, so yeah, it should be fine. See what's happening in here. Yeah, virtual network has created. These are just basic settings, right? So yeah. So yeah, this is, we can go ahead to make this to a point where we can create, say, virtual network. Yeah, because it would be nice to actually still show that we can pass out some values, say output of this subnet resource, which would be resource. We'll pick this resource name, then we'll just go down. Properties. Let's call this subnet ID string equals to, yeah, so properties subnet ID, really what we want here. Yeah, this. So pick the first value here, which is on the only value here. Okay, but yeah, to put that here. So what this does that it's from this module is outputs the resource, the subnet ID, and makes it available for use. Okay, that means if we add this similar stuff on our main biceps, we can try to output that subnet ID. How we do that? We need to refer to this module as a resource, right?
Yeah. With this 0, you just introduced indexing.
No. This one will not be part of it because it has already done this job here to pass this file. So we are targeting this again here. So what we'll do is we'll say you can define anything here, but I just like to maintain the sentence so it doesn't confuse anybody so much. Then we'll have outputs, output function. Then we have the string we want to output, which should be this ID. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that should be fine. So that makes it like available. If we run deployment again, we should see it's being displayed.
Or you can just run validate instead of redeploying again.
Yes, shouldn't really do anything because there's no change in code. Just, I mean, that's what we expect. Yeah, that should work as well, but it should be fine.
Okay, now that we have two resources, we have resource group, we have virtual network created. So I mentioned that it would be good if you shed more light on the modular structure, why the reason we are using modules.
Yeah, so for using modules, maybe Promise can throw some light on that.
Okay. Your mic is on mute, Promise.
Yeah, so one of the benefits I would say using modules would be in scenarios where you want your codes to be reused, right? I mean, in scenarios where you say, for instance, you've defined your modules in a particular structure, and you want anyone who in your department who wants to make use of that code, right? Once they see your module, they are able to just supply the variables which you've passed in there, and you get to see some form of, I would call them, well properly arranged codes, and you don't have, okay, someone supplying a variable here, and then in this other place, some other variable is not supplied. So you see some form of uniformity, and it helps in making your code look a very well decent. You don't need to supply all the variables because the necessary variables have been defined in the modules. So I would say this is one very interesting way of, arranging your codes in a proper manner. Yes, so that is what I would say is the benefit of using modules, because of the ability to reproduce and reuse over and over again. I don't know if anyone has any question. One of the questions I wanted someone to ask would be, I discovered that Nacho had already created the VNet, but then he added some new code and we ran, right? And the question I was expecting to ask was, will rerunning that code cause any form of changes? But no one asked that. And clearly, Nacho did actually mention that even if you haven't done, if in a scenario where you hadn't done any major change in the code, you can run the code over and over again. And it's not like it's going to delete and recreate. No, it's not going to do that. Your code is just going to be the same and your output will be the same. It's not going to recreate that resource because there was no major change. All right, I also see Ibrahim Jimo has a question. Ibrahim, please can you unmute and ask a question?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, my name remains Ibrahim Jimo. I have this question, which is about how to understand the state of what was deployed, and also to understand if there are some kind of a way to lock the state to avoid some kind of discrepancies on deployment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Nacho, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, I think the user might be very familiar with Terraform.
Yeah.
It definitely more sound like a more Terraform question for me. Well, I'm not particularly sure if Bicep has state lock properties for its deployment. Maybe I could look that up, but I know Terraform has that. And most of the things we have is that sometimes, because people if you have used Terraform before, you likely will immediately compare Terraform with Bicep, but it's not, because it doesn't have a state file. Yeah. So it doesn't have a state to even lock in the first place, right? So I want to say it's a good question because there's really no state, basically. There's no state. So there shouldn't be a state lock.
All right, but I think one of the things you can do in this case, if you have deployed your resource making use of Bicep, would be safest choice would be for you to just probably lock the resource group to avoid any form of unwanted deletion or unplanned deletion. That's something you could do. Yes, Chidebere, I see your hands are raised up. I don't know if you have any contribution to this.
Yes, just to second what you guys have added. Unlike Terraform that you have your state files, so with Biceps, it doesn't have a state. Rather, it works in incremental deployment method. So once there are major changes or so, then the changes to the resources, the old resource will be kept as it is, and then the necessary changes will be implemented. So on the resources or the infrastructures you have deployed, just as Promise mentioned, you can introduce locking of those particular infrastructures, but not like an entire state in itself.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chidebere. Does any other person have a question? Thank you very much for your question, Ibrahim Jimo. Yes, I see Ibrahim Jimo's hand is up again. Ibrahim Jimo, yes. Can we have your question again?
Oh, so please forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
And I'd like to chip in one little stuff, which I'm having like a kind of a confusion.
Okay.
Uh, okay, you said it's an incremental deployment and stuff like that. And I happen to be a kind of a newbie in this field. And let's assume I want to probably maybe do a rollback of a deployment or something like that. I think if you can demonstrate that to us on how to do a rollback, this would actually, help us in case we miss maybe deployed something on the environment and would like to have it deleted immediately.
Um,
O-
Nacho
Okay.
Chilebere, would any of you like to take this one?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's yeah. You can go ahead
Okay.
if you want.
Okay.
Let me
I
tell
stand
you.
to be corrected, but let me start with this. So, with respect to rollback, yeah, as I mentioned during the introductory part, that with Bicep, you can version your deployment. So once you have different versions of your deployment, you can actually roll back to previous versions or newer versions, because you have, let's say, for instance, version 1, version 2, version 3, and maybe if anything happens, you can actually roll back to the particular version of which you feel okay is more okay to what you want, and then implement that particular version. So my
Yeah.
senior colleague, I think, will shed more light on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so to throw more light to that, especially when you have version control systems like say Git, your deployments changes will have definitely Git versions, commit versions, which you can really try to roll back to and redeploy. Okay, but like my colleague mentioned, it's an incremental deployment, so you might also want to have that in mind when you're doing your rollback. Yeah.
Exactly. And also in scenarios where you really can't get the actual state which you want, the another option would be to either delete that resource in question, which the extra resource which you have created. That would be the next option if you can't roll back to the previous state before you run the next commit. Yes, I don't know, Ibrahim Jimo, I don't know if you're clear on that or if you would have more questions for us to answer.
Don't let me bug you guys with the bounty full of questions which I have on my head right now.
Yeah.
But could you please just maybe clarify something? Is it possible for me to actually come up with some kind of YAML file or probably some JSON file for this deployment instead of writing some kind of a readable language like this?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I understand your question clearly. So, there is Bicep and there's ARM templates. Okay, so ARM templates looks like the old de facto way of doing things, which actually comes in JSON. So then this Bicep is kind of trying to come very close to Terraform, right? Which is in Biceps kind of stuff. So there's an option for JSON. It's similar. It's ARM templates. So if you want to do a JSON deployment, you can want to reference ARM templates. I don't know if someone wants to add to that as well. Then for the previous question, I just want to add this. Though there's a default incremental deployment for Bicep and ARM templates, there's also a kind of complete deployment, which like it tries to be a little bit like Terraform. So if you have an old version and you're redeploying with a complete version, it does whatever it gives you the description for everything you have in that file. So even if you haven't included some stuff, it deletes it. So that's more like a more aggressive approach. Just for the last question.
All right. Just to also add a bit to what my colleague here also mentioned. I think in this scenario you were making a reference to
YAML.
the JSON script. Yeah. They are also, I mean, JSON usually is seen as the machine readable kind of language. That's why people barely write in JSON. But of course, there are tools you can either use to convert from JSON to Bicep and Bicep to JSON. So you can either make use of those tools if you're writing in Bicep to convert to JSON, or the interesting thing is that even in the Azure portal, you could write your commands on like a form and then Azure translates it for you to JSON. Either of the options are fine. Yeah, Chidebere, I think you wanted to mention something as well.
Yeah, you have addressed that, except maybe we don't clarify the question for Jimo, then I think I'll shed more light on that. Hi,
Awesome.
Jimo. You mentioned the YAML configuration, right? Did I
Yeah,
get that right?
Camel and Jason, they are the same,
Yes, also if like on the part two of this based on time constraint, so if we are going into creating a CI/CD pipeline for this, so which will be on the part two of this, but just to give a brief overview of what you should expect on based on this your question. So we can have a YAML script for the pipeline, because in Azure pipeline, basically that we have either classic template or using YAML, right? So, but for the purpose of the training sessions that we'll be having, we're not going into classic template. We use YAML script to do that, which will give you more flexibility to customize your script and then to make it the way you want. So in that situation, you can have your Bicep to deploy the infrastructures, while on the pipeline script will just be basically your JSON or YAML that will just set up the pipelines and everything will deploy.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Chidebere. Okay, so Jimo, I hope that has shed some light into your
Yes, she
questions.
really has clarified my question perfectly well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Jimo. I'm afraid at this point in time, we may not be able to take more questions. Of course, there's a follow-up session for this. We will share some link where maybe we could use it, probably a WhatsApp link or something, just to carry everyone along with it. So look forward to that in our next post on Meetup, right? We'll share something so everyone can be in a group and we can share details regarding these training sessions on that group. All right. Also, we'll
I
be
have a
having
query.
part two of this. Sorry, Jimo. Also, we'll be having a part two of this. The date will be posted on LinkedIn and also on Meetup when we'll be having a part two of this session. And it's a series actually, so we will just update you on the next time we are bringing up the next topic. So we expect everyone to look forward to these sessions. Trust me, you're going to have amazing and talented DevOps guys in this place. And sure, everyone is just free to share their knowledge. So even if you're joining and you have previous knowledge, please feel free to contribute. I think that is the essence of all of this. So Jimo, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I have a query for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting link shared on the meetup is not actually correct because I've been struggling to connect to this meeting for a while.
Yes.
The,
Apologies.
my suggestion also is to also leave the link open in such a way that you don't have these frequent prompts for users trying to connect or people trying to join this meeting from different angles, waiting in the lobby. So please, I would suggest that you keep the link open and also update the meetup with the current link to join the meeting for
Yes.
further meetings and stuff like that.
Yes, we knew there were some challenges with that today, but for the forthcoming other sessions, I believe they will be smoother than this one. And of course, this was our very fourth session for today, and I think it pretty went well. I think this was a pretty nice session. Thanks to experts in the house, Chidebe Ogu and Ihan
Okay.
Chochuku, and of course, like I said, this is a venue where we intend to bring in more experts on the session. So please look forward to our upcoming sessions. And in this point in time, I would just like to ask for maybe if there's a last word from Chidebere and Ihanacho before I round up the session for today. Any one of you have last
Okay.
words?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Promise, and thank you so much to our audience today. especially Ibrahim. So please, we sincerely apologize for the glitches we encountered today on the link. We'll address that before our subsequent meeting. However, I would also like to add that before posting or during posting the next event that we'll have to do the CI/CD pipeline session of this and some other series that we'll be having, I would like to add a WhatsApp group. Then on that WhatsApp group, in case if maybe there's a network glitch or the link we shared didn't work and all that, then we'll be able to drop a quick link on that group and members can quickly join from there instead of trying to figure out to reach out to individuals via meetup again and all that.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Chidebe. Ian, Nacho, do you have any last words for us?
Yeah, thank you everyone who found it worthy to join this meeting despite the earlier challenge. I have so many people in the group. I don't know everyone here. So, but yeah, I really appreciate making out the time. We'll make sure the next session wouldn't have those glitches. My apologies for the little bit of delay and all of that. Thanks so much.
All right, everyone. It's been an amazing session, and I
Thank
would
you.
like to round up the session for today. Thank you all, and see you in our next session. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. We appreciate
Bye.
it.
Bye.